Tracy Swedlow, and this is Televisionation. I am so happy to have Sean Doherty, who is the co-founder and SVP over at the company called Wurl, W-R-L, and their URL is WURL.com. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I was reading your bio, and it said that you had been a previous talent coordinator in the agency business in LA, which sounds like a lot of fun. That's another story for maybe another universe, unless you have a specific observation, because you're still in the entertainment biz.
Yeah, still in the entertainment business and still making use of a lot of the things that I learned. How people make money, how deals get done, where the money flows, all those sorts of things. That was really, kind of the main thing I learned that I took with me now using it Wurl.
I know we're here to talk about the company and the platform and everything, but I have to say, when I worked in the film business, post-production film business in New York City at Sound One, which is at 49th and Broadway, it was a really great experience, kind of like what you were doing, because all these famous people were there, and I really learned what a real professional industry was like and how to behave around famous people, how to behave around situations where there's a lot of money at risk. A lot of money at risk, and just how to, become a professional. So I think it's a great learning ground. So I recommend that to people in their early jobs.
It was awesome. I mean, everybody, when I moved to LA, everyone recommended that I go work at an agency, because it was kind of like, if you come to LA and you want to be in the business, this was kind of like the grad school, for lack of a better term. So, I learned all kinds of stuff, but even just like basic habits of work, how to work, very quickly at a super high pace when you've got a lot of volume and, kind of coming at you all the time. That's just one example, but a lot of stuff, like what you said, how to behave around famous people, how to treat, the certain situations, a lot of money at stake, deals being done, all those sorts of things.
High pressure
all the time. Yeah,
yes.
It prepared me very well for the startup life, I have to say.
Okay, so let's talk about Wurl, and would you call it still a startup or not? How many years have you been in business?
Yeah, I really would. We've been in business for a long time, but we, since 2011 actually, but we've, we're still very, startup-y in the, kind of how new our industry is, how quickly we're growing. Sort of all the main attributes of a startup, we've got it, but hopefully the positive ones more so than the negative.
Well, us too. We're still in the startup mode. Okay. Well, let's, before we go into it in depth, actually, you're on a roof. Where are you? You're in LA?
I am okay?
In LA. How's your dad?
I'm all good. Sean Senior, the Wurl CEO, he and I started the company together. We're good. He's actually based in Palo Alto. I'm based down here in Santa Monica. So we've got offices in both places, though that matters a lot less now than it used to. And so, yeah, I've been, kind of stay at home here in LA in Santa Monica.
Well, there's a lot of what they call efficiencies being built into the system, but that's also what Wurl's about, right? I mean, and you guys are at the nexus of transforming this need for content to get to the right places. So let's try to let's let people understand a little bit about what Wurl is capable of doing. Because I know, for example, I get a lot of calls from independent producers, artists, people who find me by searching, and they say, how do I get my show? What do I do? Who do I turn to? I mean, and I know you aren't necessarily standing there trying to help the independent small producer of content, or maybe you are, but you're more of an enterprise, offering. But
it's a bit of the independent, but mostly the enterprise.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Wurl is doing? And I see you've had a huge amount of growth. You just launched 28 out of 97 new channels in the first quarter across 7 countries in one day. So tell us a little bit about what that means. please.
Yeah. So the world of distribution, as you know, I think many of the people that are probably that will watch and yourself know, the world of distribution and where people consume content is exploding. The number of places that want to consume it, the number of platforms that want to build their own, sort of services, we call them video services, that want content is really growing very quickly. And so what we do is we're here to help the video producers. Those are, everybody from cable and broadcast networks to digital first producers to, sort of everything in between in that stack. Help them manage this from both a monetization standpoint, a distribution standpoint, to sort of be their single home for both of those things. Help them get their content out there and help them, sort of single home their monetization setups so that they can, really get some efficiencies and grow their distribution as quickly as they would like to. Be everywhere. In many cases, is a lot of what these producers are looking to do.
You have helped quite a lot of really established companies. Do you want to name a bunch of companies off the top of your head, or I can go bring up a screen?
Yeah, I can mention one. We just launched a channel today, actually, that just went live, which is Bloomberg TV Plus network, which is a 4K UHD network, which we're really excited about. It's the first one that we've launched. It's the first one on Samsung TV Plus, which is the service that it launched on. So we're really excited about that one. We've announced some partnerships with giant producers of content and giant companies like A&E and AMC and Endemol and a handful of others. So the growth of our network at that top end, at the sort of big studios, has really accelerated a lot in the last 8 months to a year. Now that those companies really see a path to distribution in some of these new places that people are consuming their content.
And so when a company comes to you, what's the, how much time goes by before they tell you they want to do a deal? Maybe they gather their content and you're able to ingest it, get it together, and deliver. What are we talking?
Yeah, so, our general process for launch is about 4 to 6 weeks from when they, kind of start with Wurl to when we sort of hand off to the service. Each service has its own, sort of QA cycles and things like that for when they launch a channel. But that's the sort of Wurl process in the middle that's about 4 to 6 weeks. There's a lot of prep that the video producers do, and that's highly dependent on who it is and what they're going to distribute and how many channels they're going to stand up. Some are very quick. Some are, take a little longer. It just depends. And then each service has its own process for how they QA channels and how they review them and ultimately launch the channels. But 4 to 6 weeks is kind of a general timeline for the Wurl process. That's, compared to what it was in broadcast and things like that, it's incredibly quick to launch channels. And we have really, gotten a lot of efficiencies, both process efficiencies and technology efficiencies, to get these channels out the door very quickly. And allow the video producers to kind of put in the minimal amount of work that they have to do up front to get these channels out the door.
So what's happening right now? I mean, I know that content is growing across the board, the hunger for content, even from what I understand, from what I have from my notes here is that ingestion of advertising, had dipped for a while. Of course, we've been watching that and hearing a lot of that through these Televisionation interviews, but now it's growing back. It's pumping back. And so I'm kind of curious, what are people asking for right now? Do they want to deliver to the fast services, AVOD, or are they delivering, or are they experimenting with some other things? I mean, what are the trends right now? Where do they want to send content to? What kind of apps?
So the fast services are growing like crazy. They had been, they had been at, towards the end of last year, really picking up steam, kind of second half of last year. And that pace of, kind of interest and excitement, especially from, like I said, the big studios, has only, picked up this year. The sort of stay at home and things like that has not slowed the producer's interest in being on these platforms, and it has for sure not slowed the service's interest in licensing content and having more, especially as those services, the hours of viewing and the viewership time on those services has only increased, while everyone is staying at home. And so, the producers are seeing an ability to go there. As you mentioned, ad sales, kind of took a dip initially during this, which, was expected, but it has really come back in a meaningful way the last few weeks.
Would
I
that,
believe it's going to continue.
I have this weird inkling that the viewership on Mondays increases a lot, like more than it ever did before. I feel like email is very quiet. People are not working. I think they're just taking an extra day of weekend and they're all
I think
watching.
you might be right. Yeah. The viewership we tend to see viewership on weekends, spikes up quite a bit, and then it usually takes a dip during the week. I will tell you that dip during the week is not nearly as high as it used to be.
I'm curious if Mondays people are, I know they're drinking, they're out there watching TV,
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look at the dashboard after we hang up, and I'm gonna come back to you, and I'm gonna tell you exactly what it. I'm gonna tell you exactly what it looks like.
Okay, all right. So tell me a little bit about, where are the opportunities for innovation here? I mean, delivering content, is something that you really understand, but what's the edge? What could you be doing next in order to make this a really exciting experience for your customers? What's coming up?
Well, yeah, all kinds of stuff. From the more and more platforms that are kind of expanding the network internationally. In particular, we did a big international push at the end of last year. That is only continuing this year. So delivering content to more countries. The OTT provides an opportunity for a truly kind of international network. You can distribute content at the very same time across the entire world should you want to. So I think there's a lot to do there. There's a lot to do in data. How can we, make use and help our video producer clients make use of the data that is available so that they can improve their programming, understand better about what to do, how they should cater to certain audiences, things like that. And then advertising is like a third bucket. It's like, how is advertising going to change? OTT makes television advertising, fully dynamic, targeted, addressable. So, how is advertising going to change now that that's available? Is, OTT going to continue on its, massive growth path, which we really believe it will? And our ad format's going to change. Are there going to be new things that are introduced because you can do some pretty amazing stuff on, because you've got, each stream is targeted, each ad is targeted, that kind of thing.
Are you actually in touch with all these international networks? Are you guys handling those relationships, or are the producers who own the content handling that? I mean, to what extent are they just sort of saying, here's the URL or the server where to send my content, or are you providing that buffer, that integration as well?
It's interesting, it's interesting, the way that you kind of talk about producers versus the networks. In some cases, the producers are creating their own networks. So Endemol, for example, historically a giant producer and still, massive producer of content, never been, in the distribution business, now runs their own channels. So we're empowering these, kind of producers to, in some cases, be their own distribution, and in other cases, empowering the existing networks and new networks entirely to be created by people that are either have networks already, they're just going out and licensing content for these things, and kind of spinning up networks. It's such a kind of wide world now, and content, there's so much content available that we're helping a lot of these guys create networks, whether it be here in the U.S. or internationally.
But are you integrating with these international entities? Do you have to interface with their engineers, or do they do all that stuff? Do they make all the plans and then you just sort of deliver it to a server? I mean, to what extent are you becoming a company that handles international relations? You know what I'm saying?
We are for sure becoming a company that handles international relations. So we have to talk to all of these customers on both sides of the network, both the people that own the content and that are creating these channels and these, and delivering their VOD and all that kind of stuff. We talk to them on one side, and then on the other side we have to talk to all the distribution. So talking to the places where we distribute this content is equally as important from an international standpoint. When we, kind of expand the network.
Are you working with anybody delivering local news to various apps and things like that? Or, you're more delivering original content and things like that, right? Not so
We
much
do have a handful of
news.
news channels, so we've
Mhm.
got, kind of national news channels like Cheddar and Newsy and Bloomberg and others.
Oh yeah, you
I'm trying to
mentioned
think off.
Bloomberg earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if we have. I don't think we do have any local news right now. Localization is an area though where I think there is going to be a lot more interest because OTT does provide an ability to, because you understand where people are, you can kind of automatically localize some of these services. So I think that is going to be a big interest. Stir, Sinclair's service, has done a lot of work in localization, providing local news on their service, and I think has helped them stand out in the marketplace and get a lot of viewership in that way.
And since you get to see all the data for all this content you're sending internationally and nationally here, what kind of trends are you seeing in terms of like what's doing well in this environment?
It's a good question. A lot of different things do well, and it really depends on what service you're delivering to, what the audience is like for that service, what country you're in, things like that. We do see that big brand kind of content, as you would expect to some extent, big brand content does do quite well. It attracts people when they're just browsing a guide. They can immediately just key in on, oh, I recognize that. I'll kind of watch that. But we see a lot of the digital first stuff, for example, like Jukin Media does quite well across all these different platforms. They've created, very large brands for themselves and, recognizable, and the content is compelling. And so,
I just interviewed Jonathan Skogmo. We haven't put it out yet, so
yeah,
stay
there you
tuned for
go.
that
Yeah.
at Jukin.
Yeah. There you go.
Jukin does UGC content. They're very good at managing small, short form, UGC content. So
yeah, super good at it.
Very good, kind of nimble. Would you say that kind of content? Maybe that's what you're saying is that's very easily distributed. It's accessible in other countries. It's a good traveler, wouldn't you say?
It is.
Would you agree?
I totally agree. They've done an amazing job of kind of, we've helped them out along the way, but they've done an incredible job of kind of putting this together and using that UGC content that they have and packaging it up in the right ways to make it, really, even outside of their usual channels, social and YouTube and things like that, package it up into ways that make it really compelling for the services and really compelling ultimately for viewers.
And tell me a little bit about the different platforms you're working with. I know you go to all these streaming services, but are you working with connected TV? I know you're bringing in live streaming. To some extent, I need your service to produce our virtual event, but that's another story. But there is a need right now for big TV producers to work with live streaming and pre-recorded content and high quality, well-produced content, and sort of mixing and matching that and getting that out the door to all of these apps. But to some extent, there's a need for smaller producers to do all that. But back to the original question, which was, which platforms are you delivering all of these sort of complex services to? Mostly apps, big TVs, smart TVs. Tell me more.
Connected TV is kind of our sweet spot, so that's where that's the main place that we distribute, and to some extent that's because it's the main set of platforms that we really believe are going, as television viewing migrates to other platforms. CTV, we believe, is uniquely positioned to take a lot of that viewership and basically convert it to CTV viewing. So the platforms like the Roku channel and Samsung TV Plus and Sinclair's Stir platform, and those are kind of and Vizio's platform as well. So we deliver channels to a lot of these CTV platforms, and then we've got some other platforms where we deliver like partnerships like Twitch, where we kind of deliver them content, and it becomes a totally different experience for a lot of these video producers that want to be there, and they often are sort of packaging their content up in unique ways for each platform, given what they know and about each platform or their deal with each platform or things like that. Twitch is a great example. They'll package up their content more for that social viewing audience, whereas on Samsung TV Plus, it's more of a lean back experience. And so, what does that look like? So it's we deliver to a lot of different platforms.
Are you delivering content where there's interaction and chat? Is that what you're saying? I mean, kind of like Twitch. I mean, are you seeing some growth in social TV viewing
Yeah, so we
experiences?
we you know Twitch has these marathons that they do of content, and we've helped them out for a long time on these marathons, and they see quite a lot of success on bringing in content into the Twitch environment that's analogous to their viewership, and things like that, where they get a lot of kind of social viewing and positive feedback about from the community about those marathons and non-gaming content.
I remember the day when they used to do, in the early days of interactive TV, they used to do these big marathons of Star Trek content. But
Yeah,
I'm going off on a tangent. But I mean, it'd be interesting to see a more complex delivery of content that had interactivity or gaming, and social TV viewing while
yeah.
people are watching their favorite branded content like that.
I
You
mean,
know?
Netflix seems to be having quite a lot of success with the interactive, sort of content, choose your own adventure kind of content that they've put out recently.
Yeah. I think the incredible Kimmy Schmidt is interactive at the moment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that was the latest one that they did. I think maybe a Black Mirror episode, that was like that. They've had quite a lot of
Bandersnatch.
success.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
last year.
Yeah.
That was last year.
Yeah.
We actually won an award at our leadership awards last year for that.
That's
Long
great.
story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, what are you involved in dealing with personalization layers and AI layers, and do you deal with all of that, or is that dealt with somewhere else remotely? Is that something that's put into the content somewhere else?
I think it's to some extent, we're involved in helping these producers understand what performs across each of these different, platforms, and helping them make better decisions about content and advertising and all kinds of things that, we can help out with the data. When it comes to, AI and personalization, I think there's a lot of room to grow there. And how the services are going to deliver that personalization, how we can help the producers, by understanding their content and everything about it, how we can help the producers power those kinds of experiences. I think there's a lot of room to grow in that area.
Because you're getting to see so much of what's going on, you get a sense of what's
Exactly.
working, and that's interesting. Well, if you had to advise an independent producer today, the kind of content they should produce, or
Yeah.
what's going to work, and how to get started, other than coming to you, like what would you say to
Yeah.
them? What do they need to know before they walk in the door?
Yeah. So, I think in terms of what content to make and what to go out and do, I think there's a lot of companies, smaller independents that are out sort of licensing content to starting with licensing first, and then, getting into kind of producing their own stuff. I think there's a lot of content out there available that can be packaged up into larger offerings. That doesn't require massive, licensing fees and things like that. And that's a logical place that a lot of our producers, especially the ones that we were first customers very early on, that's a lot of, where they started really. And now, they're getting to a point where they've kind of done that. They've packaged it up. They've been out there in the marketplace for a while. They're establishing their own brands, and they're able to kind of move up the funnel in terms of the content quality and the content that they're getting, and in some cases producing themselves. So I think I would, if I were kind of an independent producer thinking about it, I think I would probably start there. In kind of creating something and creating an offering for the marketplace. Have a clear point of view about what this, package is. Is it, I don't know, is it lifestyle content in a certain genre? Is it, sort of niche sports content? Is it, what is it? What's your plan to grow it? And, because the services are getting pinged a lot by all kinds of people that want their content on these platforms. And so having a very clear, like, this is it, this is the brand, here's what we're building, here's what we've got, makes it a lot easier for these services to kind of understand what you're bringing to the table.
I mean, I've seen various companies flirt with the idea of doing this, but then maybe they just say, I'm just going to deliver this on Facebook, and then but they keep their focus very narrow to that community, and they're fairly good at that, but they don't have the wide distribution. They don't hit the millions and millions of viewers they possibly could reach, because they want to have greater control. They don't want to have to pay a third party. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I personally,
It's hard.
there's so much content out there that would be so exciting,
Yeah.
and that to get out to a wider world.
I totally agree with you. I mean, we've kind of built, we call what we've built kind of the Wurl network. And we as producers come into the Wurl network and, kind of join and, they want to start getting distributed and things like that. We do help a lot of these producers by introducing them to these services, and saying, look, this is a new producer on the Wurl network. This is their content. This is what they've got. Here's how they're going to grow. And, helping these producers get access to some of this distribution is definitely something we do, with the producers that are on the network. But I agree with you. There's a lot of producers out there with super high quality content, a certain number of hours, that they maybe produce a week or a month or whatever it is, or a library, that they've got. And, how do they get that out there and how do they distribute it? Starting with social is a great place to go, is a great place to start. And then building from there is kind of, I think the path, if you will.
Well, I've got a company to tell you about offline. So
yeah.
Is there something else that you'd like to add that we didn't hit on? Any parting words?
No, I think that's about it. It's like, we've built this Wurl network. It's, it's growing at an incredible pace. The CTV OTT world is growing at an awesome pace. And, I guess I would say that, Wurl kind of operates at the center of all these connections from the video producers and the video services and advertising, all these things, helping the video producers really make it easier. And, the growth speaks for that.
I actually did think of a question, which is, if you're dealing with a smaller producer who's not connected with a huge multi-million-dollar, studio or something, would you be able to help them? Would you take a cut? Would you invest? Are you in that business to invest in smaller producers of content?
We're not in that space. The most of our customers tend to be of a certain size, at a certain, that are interested in expanding their distribution. So many of them have had conversations with the distribution already, and are looking for, in some cases they've talked to one, and they need intros to other, or they've even, in the larger cases, they've talked to all of them. And they, it's like, look, we need help, managing this sort of Wild West world of distribution. Help us, understand both where to go and how to get there. And so we end up being a real partner for these customers to help them do that. On the smaller side, we do have a series of smaller studios. They tend to get introduced to us via a service, that's interested in picking up their content because, as you mentioned, they find it, they say, look, this is great stuff, I want this. And then, we help them navigate the rest of the distribution world and what that looks like.
I will thank you very, very much, Sean. I really appreciate it, telling your story at WurlWurl.com.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a great day. Don't go, because I will tell you.
Thank you for having me.